Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new interview with MinnMax. MinnMax is a place about games, friends, and getting better. My name is Ben Hansen. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited about this interview today. It is with the one and only Chris Plante, who you might know as a co-host of The Besties, one of the biggest video game podcasts around. He's also the editor-in-chief of Polygon before that site was sold off earlier this year. And so in this interview, we talk about lessons from his time at Polygon and specifically what it's like now to launch his own podcast called Post Games. It's a great show, only a couple weeks in, but it's very much going for a loose, fun version of This American Life, but all about video games. MinnMax's Kelsey Lewin was on an episode not too long ago. So it's a lot of good behind the scenes of games media stuff in this interview. If you enjoy it, you can always help support it directly by hitting subscribe on YouTube. We'd appreciate that. We have a ton more interviews like it in the playlist. And on top of that, if you want to help support it directly, you can go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. If you jump in at the $5 tier, you unlock the podcast version of this interview, all of our other interviews, our Game Club series called The Deepest Dive, where we just wrapped up a great conversation about Claire Obscure Expedition 33. And as an extra bonus for this week, if you support MinnMax on Patreon before July 7th, 2025, we will DM you on Patreon with a Steam code for Despelote. Truly one of my favorite games released so far this year. It's a game about growing up in Ecuador and the importance of soccer throughout this kid's life. It is an amazing slice of life game that I truly love. So we'll DM you a code for Despelote. If you support MinnMax on Patreon, we have 200 Steam codes to give away. We will post on all social media when we run out, but jump on in before July 7th, help support independent games media, and we will send you that Steam code for Despelote. And hey, while you're at Patreon, go support Post Games and help support Chris Plante's dream project here with Post Games, which is getting out of the gate very strong. So subscribe to Post Games as well on your favorite podcast app. And you can learn why by listening to the interview. So without further ado, here's Chris Plante. Chris Plante, welcome to MinnMax, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor to have you on. You had Kelsey Lewin from MinnMax and 1,000 other things on Post Games. So it's nice to finally have you on your first piece of MinnMax content ever, I think.
I think that's right. That's weird. That doesn't seem like it should be right, but I guess it is.
Yeah, I guess that's on us for not reaching out more aggressively.
How dare you? Well, after that intro, and you thought, you know what? Wait, am I allowed to curse on this? I should probably
go nuts, please.
This guy.
Hey, whoa. Hey, come on. I have to bleep those out, Chris. Come on. What are you doing, man? You're adding time to the editing of this whole thing.
You're damn right.
I was so excited with Post Games when you said that you're editing the things yourself. Like, I don't know. As an editor, that just makes me happy. Of just like, oh, God, I'm so glad that I can feel the work and the man hours going into this thing behind the scenes now and the extra love and attention you have to put into every episode of Post Games.
Yeah, I mean, I had to. I felt like it was like there was no choice. A number of people were very kind, and I have a lot of friends who are editors. But I realized if I want to figure out what the hell this thing is, I have to build it. Like I have to like actually assemble it.
Yeah.
And then once you do it, there isn't a I don't like to overuse the word addictive, but there is a pull to it that you kind of can't resist. You get in a flow state with it that's really appealing.
Yeah. How detailed is it? Are you going?
How detailed is my editing?
Yeah. Are you?
Oh,
it seems pretty smooth from the outside.
I hope. Yeah, I'm a maniac. So I have no experience editing audio until like the day I decided to do this. And I had like a little experience editing video in college, which is like 20 years ago. So useless. It was like, okay, well, I was splicing film. So yeah, I ended up using this program called Descript, which have you heard of this?
No.
People hate it. Like pretty much anybody who works in the industry is like, what is wrong with you? Because it's kind of like if you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get into music production. And they're like, what are you going to use? And you're like, well, I found this child xylophone. And like, wait, no, you should use other things. But it's a tool that is more about editing words than it is about editing sound. So when you put it in, it does a full transcription.
Right.
And then you can edit it by moving words around. Here's the thing. Sounds like total if you do it that way. So you do have to then learn how to edit the sound too. And the sound editing tools are like nowhere near as advanced as probably whatever you're using. So it for me, it's really me prioritizing the story and then knowing that it's going to be a headache for me to like make it sound okay after that.
Right.
Versus the opposite, where it's like, oh, I know it's going to sound great, but it's going to be kind of a bear for me to assemble what I want the story to be. Because I do move, it's very edited. I mean, the interviews are very edited. Everything is very, very, very edited for concision, clarity, structure. Like I would edit any piece that I wrote or edited.
Right. We shouldn't talk about editing. We're turning off too many people out of the gate. It's too geeky. Can we zoom?
So the thing about video games is they are full of cool shit. We've got heads popping off. We've got butts. And I'm talking about all butts. Dude butts, lady butts, robot butts. You can tell that I just made an episode about porn games because that was exactly where my mind went.
It was the tasteful way to talk about porn games. Perfect. But yeah, I mean, just zooming out, I mean, how are you feeling overall, man? You've taken a huge swing in your life, so congratulations. How are you feeling at this phase, just a couple weeks in?
Thank you. I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, I'm feeling, before this, I no longer working with all the people I worked with at Polygon, and also worrying about all the people who are out of a job. That part sucks. But I feel good about like all of their prospects, and I feel good about my prospects. So like we're kind of hitting that point after, something kind of cataclysmic happens in your life.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, the world is here and it's still under my feet, and like we're all gonna figure this out. So I'm feeling better and better each day. And then in terms of this project, yeah, I think it's going to work.
Yeah.
We'll see,
you
know?
I mean, it seems sustainable-ish. The numbers are looking okay.
The numbers are looking okay. I also had built myself a lot of runway over the years. Basically, after COVID, I freaked out. I had like severe panic attacks and realized, oh, this industry is a total fickle monster. And even though I had tremendous confidence in Polygon, I still had this feeling of one day something will catch me off guard.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I had that feeling, because now it's giving me the time to actually like make the thing that I want to make. Because I do believe, and I'm sure you can relate to this, like if you make the thing that you want, your odds are like immediately so much higher. Like if it's truly the thing that you're like, I wish I had this.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. The problem is those things take a while to ramp up. There's like capital, there's overhead, there's all those things. So.
And you were hell bent on keeping it as slim as possible. You didn't want to jump into some adventure with like, okay, we got a staff of 5, but maybe we can make it work in some way.
There were a few people who reached out after Polygon who were like, I bet we could get you like some money together. I bet we could figure something out. And I, very, very kind of them, ran as fast and as far as possible in the opposite direction.
Right.
Not that I don't think that like that's a good idea, and I hope other people do that. And I've seen even some Polygon people kind of forming smaller groups and like getting things together. And I have heard some news that there might be other gaming publications opening in the coming year. We'll see if that's true.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a space for that. It's just not for me. Like after years of managing, we had around 40 people, and then you're managing up and down also. I just needed a thing where I owned it. I could do the creative. The overhead was as low as possible, and whether it lives or dies, that's just going to fall entirely on me.
Yeah. So it's weird to drill into like, hey, tell me about this COVID panic you had that I think the entire world had.
No, I'm happy to.
Yeah. Was it coming from a place of, oh my God, society is so fickle, things can change so quickly, or was it a matter of it specifically the way it impacted Polygon made you just scared of having another 10 years there?
Yeah, it didn't really have as much to do with Polygon as it did to do with realizing that you all die one day, sort of thing.
Yep,
and life was really hard. we had only been living in Austin, Texas for a short while, a few years. We were trapped in this house. My wife and my child have unique health issues. So it was just like very, it was a clarifying moment, as my therapist would probably say. And I think I really wanted control in that time. And for better or worse, I am aware that the running a publication is actually not where you get that. Running a publication is where you have to really learn to cede control, I think, if you want to do it well. And that means, hey, I'm going to have a managing editor and they're going to really start to take over a lot of the analytics of our program. Okay, I need to cede that and I need to trust that it's working and I need to follow that data. I have an entertainment editor who has a plan. I need to cede that. I need to follow it. I need to keep checking up on it. I need to tinker it, but it's a lot of ceding control. And I think in the pandemic, I had this real feeling of I need something that I have control of because I don't have control of much else in my life. So I ended up actually making a newsletter during that, which was called Post Games. It was a totally different thing. And after a while, I moved that back into Polygon and made it Polygon's official newsletter. And that little experiment was kind of, I don't know, it was like the spark for all of this. It was like, hey, the fact that you felt the need to do this shows that there's something in you that still wants to be creative. The fact that you felt the need to make something independent shows that you why are you thinking all these things?
Right.
And it's oh, you probably think there's something to independent media. So then after that, it was the next 5 years kind of chasing all these things that were happening subconsciously and trying to actually figure out what the hell they meant. Why did I make this decision? And I think that's where I'm at now. If you extrapolate all that out, it's oh, you wanted to go make an independent publication, you wanted to have control of it, and you wanted to be independent. You needed to find a way to do that. And I didn't really find a way. It found me. But yeah.
That's the odd timing of this whole thing. I mean, hopefully I'm not revealing too much behind the scenes, but you reached out, I don't know, what was that? A couple months ago even, just wanted to kind of pick my brain. I think it was after the No Clip podcast with Danny O'Dwyer. We were hey, I want to talk about independent media. And I was that's interesting that Chris is choosing to do this right now. And then it was weeks later, Polygon implodes.
100%. I reached out to you. I reached out to a few people in probably November or December at different publications, mostly because I wanted to know does this work?
Right.
And I can say I don't want to go too much into the details with Polygon, but I will say selfishly, part of it was can we do that at Polygon? That's a long gone theory now, but when I reached out, we had this publication called Secret Base at Vox Media that is part of SB Nation, the sports publication. And they ended up doing a user-supported program. And I was really curious, similarly, is there a way for us to do this? Because, and we could talk about this forever if we want to get into the media business of it all. When my hat was on as Polygon boss, it's how are we going to diversify our revenue streams as much as possible? I think what is coming for the media in terms of the SEO apocalypse is bleak. And I don't think it's just Google Zero. I think it is Google Infinity. It is the fact that AI, whether it's good or bad, or you think it's all garbage or plagiarism or whatever, it still is a legitimate threat for the next few years as a whole bunch of companies shift to using it to flood search.
Yeah.
So during that, I think there was a real desire on my part to meet with people and find out ways that we could potentially make money that weren't the usual.
Yeah. And so it's kind of being on, I won't say the Titanic, that's not fair. Being on a big cruise liner and trying to build a big life raft inside of the cruise liner, assuming if this thing goes down, maybe we can slip through a window and somehow have a boat ready to go.
It is. But what I will say, because it sounds really grim, and this is cold comfort, this is every 3 years in the media.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't like a new thing. I don't want people to think like, when you say the Titanic, it's like, oh, well, I never expected it to sink. And it's like, no, the thing about the media is like, you go into you say, I'm going to go across the Atlantic Ocean, and I know I'm going to have to rebuild the boat 4 times between London and New York.
And those are different careers. Those are different outlets. You mean?
Well, not even just the outlet itself.
Sure.
Like, the outlet itself will need to be different between here and whatever our next destination is.
Yeah.
And if you look back at like the history of, especially digital media, you see the shift to video, or the shift to social, or the shift to search, or the straight down the line, like, of the moment blog feed of the early Kotaku. And there will be people who tell you like, oh, you're wrong to chase those trends, and they're right, but it's complicated in that you still need to be evolving.
Yeah.
So yes, do I think like everyone betting their entire house on Facebook video was bonkers? Yeah, we didn't do that at Polygon for that reason. But did I think that there was something true about we needed to like rethink our video program at that time? And that's when we ended up doing like a lot more of longer form videos that were really thoughtful, and zigging away from like what IGN does of like everything in the kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't compete with that. Like, yes, like that is a change that we did need to make. That's a kind of a million different directions.
No, I love it. I'll take one of them, which is, I mean, are we at a point now where we're rebuilding a ship trying to cross the Atlantic, but instead of just an iceberg in front of you, you see the wall from Game of Thrones? And that is just AI bringing down guide traffic in particular. Like, how much is guide traffic supporting these large sites like a Polygon?
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, the thing with each of these is it's complicated by, if we're talking about a video game publication, what that video game publication wants to do, or if it's just a media publication.
Yeah.
And the reality is there are like so many different ways to have revenue. I apologize if this is like way too nerdy.
No, that's why people came.
But the questions I would have is like, what is your scale? What are your revenue streams? And what are your goals? So if you are Aftermath and your goals are to have a handful of people who are paid relatively well, and can make a solid living, and your goal is to reach a like small but really passionate group of people, and you want to rely on your revenue from them, and there are goods and bads of that. Like, on one hand, you can say whatever you want. On the other hand, they're all your bosses. So there are some things you can't say, maybe. That's like one option. For Polygon, yes, guides was a really powerful readership driver, but like it wasn't even close to the end all be all.
Okay.
There were so many other ways that you could, whether that's like a direct sales deal, where you go out and you work with Target and they sponsor a large package of content, and they might pay a significant amount of money to do that. Or if you do, we did videos with Alienware, right? Like, those things don't hinge on your readership effectively.
Yeah. And that is what your job kind of gravitated more and more towards, is going out and talking to these big companies about trying to sell those big packages?
Well, my job was all of it.
Yeah.
My job was, in a given day, it could be, okay, how am I advocating for Polygon to have more budget as part of a larger structure, right? As part of Vox Media, because we had a bunch of publications there. And then it could be meeting with a book publisher to figure out like a multi-set book deal that would go over the course of a period of years, and like what would our revenue intake be on that. And then it could be meeting with a product licensing partner who might say something like, hey, if we could get Pac-Man arcades with Polygon on it and we sold them at Walmart, like what would that look like? And then it could be, checking in with our search and analytics teams on sure like our guides performance and like what the value is. And then it could be meeting with our sales team to explain to them like what Polygon is, or meeting with an external partner like Target to explain what video games are. And then right after that, I might be going over survey data for Crunchyroll on an anime report, which congratulations to them. They just did a version that is almost identical to the one that we did last year. So it was very, I guess, rewarding to see that they thought it was a great idea. But the job is infinite. Like every day it is all of these different plates that you are trying to keep spinning, because you can't bet on just guides.
Right.
I know from the outside you hear that a lot of like, guides keeps the thing going. And it's true. Guides plays like a really important part. But I find often the conversation around the business of these sites, because people are not touching it, to be like extremely reductive. Because they say that the thing that they can see is the business, when in reality the business is a lot of different things.
How unique do you think Polygon was on that front, though? I can't imagine other brands out there are having meetings with a Target or a Pepsi on a regular basis. Am I just naive for what's going on at like the head of like...
They're meeting them constantly.
Who?
IGN? Fandom.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sure, who's the parent company of... Well, Fandom, I guess, is the parent company of GameStop now. Jesus. But all of these all of these companies that are of that scale are doing this just constantly. Fandom, I think it was Fandom, had a video series that was called like Wednesday Night Football or something. And it was partnered with the NFL and like 30 brands. Not 30, but like a lot of brands. And I don't know, a few people watched it, but it's something like that is the fruit of this. And that paid, I'm sure, a lot of money that kept a lot of people employed at Fandom, even though, again, if you go and actually look at the numbers for this thing, you barely even know it exists.
So we're diving in. We're diving off the boat into the Atlantic now. But how do you guarantee views like that? If you're talking to a huge corporation and you're trying to sell this package on what? I mean, the SGF coverage, stuff like that. How can you be like, we can guarantee this amount of traffic? Isn't it always a little bit of a coin toss? And then don't they ever come back and be like, what is this crap? What do you mean no one clicked on it?
I mean, okay. Well, I mean, again, it kind of just depends on the deal, and it depends on what you're selling. But that's not, the views is not necessarily even the thing that they're like looking for. A lot of what a brand wants, the way that I find it helpful to think about like marketing is, you are cool, and they want to siphon that coolness off of you. You represent something to them. And when we get a partner, it's like, oh, well, we like what you represent, and we think being associated with you will give our brand positive value.
Right.
And there's that. And then, yes, and there's the marketing that something like IGN is really good at least from what I can see of it. I have not worked at IGN, which I think is a little bit closer to, we can provide you tremendous data. We can tell you that you want to get in front of 100,000 people who like action RPGs that have slight turn-based mechanics interwoven. Like, not only can we guarantee that, we can guarantee it down to like that level of drilling in. I think that is like a different type of thing. Yeah. But there's all sorts of things that like an advertiser is looking for. It's also weird for me because at the end of the day, like, I don't sell, I never sold ads. A lot of like what I'm doing is explaining what the hell we are. So that's where when we talk about, you know, like convincing people we are cool, that's a lot of it is like, hey, you might not know us, but your kids do, and they love us. You know, like that's.
And so you slide into the boardroom like Risky Business style, sunglasses on, explaining why you're the coolest kid in town.
Yeah,
okay.
100%. Okay. Yeah. And then they say, sir, please put your pants back on. And I say, I won't.
And that's why you need me and my energy. Do you miss...
And that's why I'm independent now.
Do you miss that, like, the romantic version of being pulled in 1,000 different directions, which is an odd sentence, I'm aware, is I'd imagine you with a coffee cup in your hand, decaf, I know, walking down, wheeling, dealing. Everyone's like, oh, a second over here. And you're just making all this stuff happen. You feel like you're in the loop. But realistically, is it just a lot of sitting at home in a COVID era of being stressed out by the amount of meetings? Like, is there any energy to it, any pizzazz you miss about kind of being connected to so many different aspects like that?
Yeah, I mean, the COVID era was the worst because when you can do this in person, it feels nice. It feels good, like, as somebody who feeds off of other people's energy, it feels really good to be out in the world and, like, meeting new people and learning about them and, like, learning how things work. That's something that I, like, really valued from the job is, as I said, I think that there tends to be pretty, like, flat and reductive views of how things operate. And it's really nice to actually go out into the world and learn how they work and learn how they work from different perspectives. A great thing about being in a room like brand X, soda brand X.
You're independent. Just say Pepsi. Just say Pepsi. What are they going to do?
Yeah, I have learned by now. But I'm in with Soda Brand P, and they the person who brings me like into the room, and then the people who are always there before the higher executives, and the people who are the higher executives, each of those people is going to give you a different idea of how things work, and that's really cool. And that's an experience that you can kind of only get by like going into these places. People are going to say things that they don't say just like on Twitter, right?
Right.
And that I miss. The things that I don't miss is the hours are horrible, because if you want to do a good job, you have to do the reading. And by that I mean, like, before every meeting, you need to know what you're going into. And that means you have to find time to like learn. So if I'm going to go into a meeting with my games team, I need to know whatever they're talking about that week. I need to be just as prepared as everybody else, if not more. And if I'm going to go into an editorial calendar planning session, like, I need to have an idea of like what our calendar is going to be for all that time. And that ends up being a lot of extra hours.
Yeah.
Because if your day is full of meetings, suddenly the time that you do your job is wherever else you can find it. And I don't miss that at all.
So it feels good to unplug from the system?
Yeah, it feels really good to, I still have workaholic tendencies, but when it is for your own thing, it just feels so much healthier.
Yeah.
And yes, like if I end up for whatever reason getting some work done now on a Sunday, on Monday I can truly just be like hands off, like I will get to it, a little bit later. Where in the past, if I like ended up having to do something on a Sunday, I had meetings. I live in the West Coast but worked East Coast hours. I would have my first meeting at 6:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's like you're right into it.
Oh man. Yeah, it's got to be fascinating just to go from being so scattered with your focus to just having full focus on one show. I'm very jealous of that, even though I'm nearing it. I feel like MinnMax is streamlined enough, or hopefully we're basically there. But I keep going back and forth about like, God, that feels so easy. And then thinking, no, that producing a weekly show like you're producing here, that is shockingly hard. Like writing the scripts is the part that just kills me. I had to like script out one podcast once, and it took me so much longer than I thought. It turns out just jumping on the besties, piece of cake compared to this, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think if there was a team, it would become so much easier if I contracted any of these things out, other than like the initial stuff, like my art and my theme song. But yeah, when you have to write 20 to 30 minutes of a monologue every week, and make sure that it actually sounds good, and then edit it, and you need to book somewhere between 1 and 3 guests, and then you need to actually do the interviews, and then like I said, I edit them quite a bit, not in any way that, changes what they say, but so that it has a flow, because the only way I see post game succeeding is if it is different from everything else, because everybody else is pulled too thin. Well, they're not pulled too thin. Everything else that is being made, I like, but it is a result of how it is made, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of shows out there that are 3 or 4 hours, and then they're basically cut live to tape, and they're great, but they are not concise, and they're made for a specific audience. And I knew like I need to be the opposite of that if I want to find a space, because like it's a crowded pool, and I need to go find a different place to swim.
Yeah, and so that's part of the quiet marketing of, this is an audio magazine. It's barely even a podcast. Think of it as an audio magazine, just trying to separate it from the pack a little bit, right?
Yeah, I haven't found the good terms for it yet. Audio magazine sounds so new. Like I don't love it. Zine is a word I used a lot at Polygon to my team's chagrin. But it is what I think about a lot when I'm making it.
Yeah.
In that the structure of the show is very loose. Like there are 3 acts every week. One of them is always the news of the week. And then there are little bonuses that I put in. There's almost always an interview. There's almost always an essay. But that essay could be 5 minutes or 30 minutes. And that interview could be 15 minutes or an hour. And they could be split up, and they could be in different order. And the bonuses could be totally different. I'm doing a Death Stranding episode this week with Donkey. And it's like this very long, meaty interview with Donkey. And then a guide to Death Stranding 2. We're like, what is a guide in a podcast format? And it's purely a guide to like the themes. So it's like, instead of a guide for how to play it, it's like, these are the 4 ideas that you need to have in your head when you're going into this game.
Give me an outlier. What's an odd one?
What's an odd one? I mean, the one that I'll give you the one that I've cut, because I just haven't had time to think it all through. But like natalism.
Yes.
is
yes.
The,
okay. Exactly.
Big thing that I think everybody should have in their head, and you should do some reading on before you play this game. I don't say any of these. I don't present any of them as like, oh, you should go in this. That way you know how much it sucks, and you shouldn't say this. But it's more like, you should really be paying attention to this, because clearly this is a big concern for this artist. And I think you will enjoy the game, or you'll have a richer experience if you're thinking about it. But like, do I do that every week? No, not at all. Right.
So you think that helps keep it sustainable on a workload basis of like, it's so flexible, people aren't going to be writing in 6 months from now being like, what do you mean the essay is only 1 minute this week? You can just be flexible as you go ahead?
That is true, I think. That was not intentional, but I think that is true. That like it gives me some freedom in that if I do something different, people aren't pissed because they expected like a very specific thing.
Yeah.
For me, it's just like I don't want to fall into the rigidity. Like, it's so easy to fall into the rigidity with a publication. And I am terrified of doing that, because once I do that, I think it could grow faster. I actually think like rigidity is good for the audience. I think people like to have that thing that they know it is exactly this way every time. But I also think it will bum me out. I think it'll make for weaker stories. And I think it could actually create a level of success where I start doing things where I can hand off the work. Where it's like, well, if I know the show's this every week, why not just get an editor?
Right.
And I want to resist that as long as I can.
Yeah, keep it personal. I think I love the show, to be clear. I'm not trying to be doomy and gloomy. I think just the format freaks me out a little bit of just like, how sustainable is this? And I realize a lot of it's coming from, I assume you were a fan of Life Well Wasted back in the day.
Yeah,
Robert Ashley's podcast, where it's like, oh, that podcast was so cool. A real like first attempt at like, hey, we are trying to take our stab at kind of the audio magazine format. It's a lot of editing involved. It's going to be tightly in there. And then I feel like it lasted 8 episodes and it all just like, this is impossible. What were we doing? And so I hear this podcast start out. I was like, this rules. I hope that it's sustainable on your end for keeping up at the pace that it's going.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about it at all.
Oh great! Wow, awesome.
And like, there's a few reasons for that. One, first, Life Well Wasted show kicks ass. And people, if you haven't heard it, you should go back and listen to it because it still kicks ass. Like, it's still great. It's timeless in a way that I wish my show could be, but it can't. There are a few things that are very different between what I'm doing and what that show did, and even what current shows like Search Engine do. These like shows that I find a lot of inspiration in that are great, but they're really high touch. And when I built this, it's funny, I say both, like the structure is loose, but there are some pretty like hardcore ground rules. And like one of the ground rules is the interview and the essay are separate. Like I can connect those loosely, but I have to keep those things separate, because the second I start trying to make that high production thing that sounds like a true NPR show where like, and here's our full reported story, and we've had 5 interviews, and each one, you know, we're just using 20 seconds of audio from it, even though it took us an hour to get it. That's just not possible at my pace and at my scale. So for me, I look at it as I want to make you an expert in something, and then I want to invite you into the deep end because it's more fun to swim there.
Right.
And if you look at the structures, even though they're all quite different, that's what we're doing every time. And I think the easiest one to see that with is the porn game episode, where it's like, here is everything you need to know about this thing that you just did not understand.
Here's why people
And
like having
now-
sex.
Yeah, and it turns out it's good. And if it's not, you should talk to people and you should have better conversations. But then when I do get into the interview with the developer, we can start at the good stuff and not do the thing where it's like, okay, what I feel like happens in so many interviews is you are at the end of the interview and now you're finally getting into the interesting question.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was interesting how, I mean, it was on that episode, I think, where you were like explaining what Steam is. And it's like, okay, we're really starting at a high level. It's interesting just to think of like what is the audience? Like you're trying to build a show, especially in the beginning, to maybe take off with people who aren't interested in games or who are just sitting in a car next to somebody who's interested in games and just trying to make it as wide of an entrance point as possible.
Yeah, what I realized is the people who know about Steam's not safe for work policy are 1% of all people who play video games at most. Right. Like on a good day.
Sure.
And I think that's the reality. It really helps having worked at both Polygon and the Besties. And I would think of these as from the outside as pretty hardcore. Like the Besties is a video game podcast that has been going on for 14 years or whatever.
Wow.
Polygon was and is one of the largest video game publications, but was always the kind of like, I hate like the hipster label, but like that was kind of the one what I often saw it associated with. Like it was for people who wanted to like go a little bit deeper, wanted to read stories.
We watched Press Reset. We get it. We get the vibe you're going for.
Oh yeah. We just love getting tattoos. I say with my anime tattoos. But when you actually like drilled in and you met the audience, people were learning about things that would seem like pretty obvious to everyone else on a daily basis. People were learning, especially something like anything PC games related. We are really in the middle of the on-ramp for broader culture into PC gaming. So I just keep that in mind a lot when I'm making something, that I don't want to make it boring for people who do know all of the hardcore stuff. But I want to make sure that there's enough there that if you are somebody who has played Switch 2 and maybe you are thinking about getting your first Steam Deck, which I would say is, based off the comments, 70% of people who listen to Besties, that you feel welcome and that you are not getting left behind.
Yeah. How do you spread the word about an audio-only podcast? I feel like YouTube...
That's a great question.
I am stumped on it myself. YouTube is such a blessing for maybe getting us into the ecosystem of some new people every once in a while. But like, if you're in that audio silo, what do you got?
I don't have a good answer. I am. This is, of all the bets I'm making, this is the scariest bet.
Right.
And I was warned about this ahead of time by a number of people who were like, this is a terrible idea financially, because there is no method for distributing your show and for getting it in front of original eyeballs. There's no algorithm out there,
right,
for your podcast. And that's why you have to be a video podcast. And I can't. Again, like I had to make hard decisions around scope, and that was really practical. Like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because I don't know how to edit video, and I understand it's not so different. Like, if I was in this edit, but it would look bad because, again, I'm doing a lot of editing. I'm like doing pop-in recordings at 2 a.m. in my underpants to like, because I'm like, oh, I want to add that line.
Yep.
And I will like go at it, and like that's just not going to work. But the thing that I kind of landed on, and it's a leap of faith, is what if my weakness is my strength? And by that I mean I will never be thinking about the algorithm. I will never be thinking about how can I respond to the machine, in a way that is going to get me in front of more people. And there are very, very few people who get to do that, really.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to do that is to have a long runway and then trust that you can run a word of mouth campaign, at least for the beginning. And that's what it has been so far. It has been, I have besties, I have nice people like you who invite me on their show, and people who like the show tend to really like it.
Yeah.
And spread it. And like you said, they introduce it to their group chats because they can. And so far that has worked. Like the numbers show that that's working. Is it working as fast as I would if I were on like a YouTube ecosystem? Probably not. But at the same time, like, it frees me up in so many ways that I think the positives just barely outweigh the negative.
Yeah, for sure. You're always nearing the top of Apple's charts, at least for the video game podcast ranking. Can you share the numbers? How are you feeling about listenership, download numbers, all that fun stuff?
I won't share any numbers just because I am currently trying to figure out a potential ad partner. And if there's anything I know, it is not to share anything publicly when you are negotiating. So we'll hold off on that. But I can say that number goes up.
There we go.
Number goes up, and number goes up both on Patreon and on public subscribership.
Is it tough?
And number goes up every day. So like there's no flat. So
mission accomplished. Yeah.
It's good.
But it's gotta be tough. Like when you're on the besties, do you obsess over besties numbers? How are you doing with looking at those?
No, I don't look at them at all.
Okay.
I mean, I know what our numbers were like a year ago because when I send a PR email to be like, hey, I need code.
Right.
I have to tell them, hey, show is healthy, and they say show is healthy, here's your code. I'm very lucky in that, like, I don't think they would care anyway. So many people in PR listen to the besties, which is very weird. I think that's because so many people in PR are now like in their mid to late 30s, and we are truly the home of the geriatric millennials. But yeah, Yeah, it's all stable, all healthy.
Oh, good. So it's not a matter of you see the huge numbers on besties and it's like, oh, it'd be tough to have that direct comparison of like, okay, starting up a new thing.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, I mean,
Okay.
Besties is a 4-person show with 2 of the most successful podcasters of all time, and it's been going for 14 years. You know, versus my show, which is been going for 2 months and is hosted by an actual clown who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. I am very happy that I'm even, you know, like a blip.
Good job, man. It's a very healthy approach. You've really done it. I mean, on the ad front, this is, again, diving into the weeds, and I apologize, but like, I thought it was interesting.
No, I love it.
Okay, great. Have you been paid for the things you're plugging on the podcast so far? Like, there's those little moments where you mention stuff like Lost in Cult or like the FPS coffee table book. And it's like, are these really subtle ads? What is going on here?
No. Big no.
Okay.
No, they're just things I like. And like,
Great.
I, like you, get sent mailers of stuff constantly. And most of it I never talk about because it's junk. But when there is stuff that I like really love, I want to talk about it and I want to recommend it to people because I think they'll like it.
Yeah.
I wish. I mean, if Lost in Cult wants to like buy some ads, they're more than welcome to. I don't know why they would. That would be stupid.
What are you
I mean,
doing?
because they're getting the milk for free. They should like. Why would you possibly pay for ads when somebody's already like, yeah, I like your stuff.
You were so careful with the download numbers. Now you're just letting it all out of the bag, man, when it comes to opening these ads. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm terrible at that. But no, I don't, and I also don't do what is it? Sponsorship links or any of those things.
Yeah. Okay. Affiliate links and all that fun stuff. Yeah. It's such a fun struggle. If you're a geek for this stuff, it's very fun of like, podcasting can be a really passive medium, you know? And so like, how do you heat the audience up? What could you possibly say into a mic that would make somebody go to, let me Google Patreon post games and support them at that tier. Like that is such a monumental task. Yeah. It seems like such a little thing, but like turns out it is a tricky thing to get people to do. And I'm wondering if you have just thoughts on that idea of like, how do you grab somebody through a podcast and say, this only exists because of you, literally for real, I will go away and this show will cease to exist unless you go to Patreon.
Yes, I think the newsletter is like the trick.
Okay.
And that is so much easier. The less friction, the better. And, you know, being able to say, go to post.games, and you go there, and the second you're there, it autofills your email if you've ever been on Substack or whatever platform you use. And then you hit subscribe. And now it's so much easier because you're right, getting you to patreon.com/postgames, do all that stuff. That's an ask. Having my show show up in your inbox with a whole bunch of other cool stuff. Yeah. I always make sure the newsletter has like stuff, that it's not just the podcast. And I reference so much materials in my podcast that if you want to get any of that stuff, you're going to need to be on the newsletter.
Right.
And then it's free advertising. You know, it's like having a web a site that thousands of people are looking at, and they're seeing my ads all over it, and all they have to do is click one. So that's like my solution for all of this.
Yeah.
It's getting them in through that.
Yeah, that's helpful. I don't think about the newsletter world that much, to be honest with you. I feel like I'm very naive for not being more plugged into that entire ecosystem.
I think the problem with like newsletters in general is it's just a tool. It's kind of like saying like, I'm not into the spreadsheets world. It's like, well, like, yeah, but like, what do you use the spreadsheet for?
Right.
Like
right.
It is a means to an end. And I think that is often also where a lot of like the discourse goes haywire around newsletters, is because they're all kind of treated as the same thing. When in reality, it's like, this is just it is an email. It is like a means of sending emails to people.
Right. Right. Yeah, it was sweet on Post Games when you took that moment before the Chris Kohler interview to talk about like Retronauts was so important to me. I'd be freaking out if I knew that I was talking to somebody who was on Retronauts back in the day. And is that the whole 1UP ecosystem? I assume that's equally important to you.
Oh yeah, so my history with 1UP is like really special and really sad. So yeah, if you, I mean, do you want me to like go from the beginning? It's a bit of a story.
Sure.
If you're okay. Long walk, small glass of 1UP water.
My favorite kind of walk.
So in college, I listened to Retronauts obsessively, and Kohler and Jeremy Parrish. I mean, these truly are the people that gave me a sense of, oh, there's like a job here.
Yeah.
Like this could be it. And everybody I knew, well, not everybody I knew, like 3 people I knew, nobody gave a shit about video games when I was in college, was like, Weekend Confirmed, you know,
Yes.
Garnet, which is great, like a great program. But
Yep.
like Retronauts was my base.
1UP yours and all that stuff before that. Yeah.
The depth of knowledge that they had, and how every time I listened, I felt like I was learning something. And it seemed like impossible. Like, how do they know which company made Mega Man? You know, or like, let alone how do they know like about Sunsoft?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and the thing is, like, after listening to them for years, you gain that. You siphon it off. And that was so special. And then after college and some like really weird job things, I graduated into the recession in 2008. And just needed a job. Like, I needed work. I had been working in film and TV, and it was a mess, and I needed steady income. And I got a job at this website called UGO.
Yeah.
And it was like IGN's big competitor in the 90s and was still around. And UGO got acquired by Hearst because of its central management system, CMS, like the thing that you like produce stories into. And Hearst then acquired other things as part of it. And one of the things that they ended up acquiring was 1UP and EGM, which led to massive layoffs at 1UP and EGM. And basically, like, my crappy brand is now tied to this. It's like, oh, well, this crappy brand came and they bought us and they ruined everything. So it was this horrible feeling of, here's this thing that I love. Here's the thing that like meant the world to me. And I'm just a junior editor. Like, I have no obviously say in any of this, but you get shipped off to the office to work on something like E3, and it's like, oh, well, you represent the enemy. And for a while I could feel it. Like, you know, like that was definitely, there's some people who are not like subtle about it, and I no hard feelings there.
Talking to 1UP and EGM people?
Yes.
Okay.
Like when I would go to the office, it was like, we would prefer that you weren't here. But very quickly, people like Tina Sanchez and Sam Kennedy and Scott Sharkey, Alice, there's so many people there who like really like welcomed me with open arms. And then it ended up being this like really special thing for a while. And that's where I did my first podcast. I did one with Tina and Sharky and Sam. And
what was the podcast?
Yeah, it was called The Oddcast.
Okay.
I believe.
Trying to remember. I'm sure I listened to it.
3 names. And yeah, I'm sure it had like 800 listeners, which is probably great at that time. But yeah, it was like this real journey of loving this thing, getting into the industry, falling into this kind of terrible, basically seeing the worst of what the industry has to offer right from the beginning.
Okay.
And then discovering like the good that it has to offer. Like then after that, meeting people and being brought into this kind of community. It was a weird like year and a half.
Yeah. And I know in the past you've cited Simon Carless, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yes.
As being a big gateway point for you for kind of introducing you to this whole world.
Yeah, Simon Carless, for people who aren't familiar with the name, now runs a thing called Game Discover Co., which is an incredibly useful tool for understanding how people become aware of games and how that impacts sales. But you can also get a free newsletter that sums up a lot of the information. And like, if you are even mildly interested in the industry, you should read this. But before that, he ran a variety of things, from like overseeing, I believe, most of the Game Developers Conference, GDC, and publications like Game Set Watch and Gama Sutra, which terrible name, but was a good resource at the time. And he gave me my first paying gig at Game Set Watch in like 2006 or 7.
Okay, so that led to UGO and all that stuff.
That was, I didn't plan on it being a job, but it was like when I went to apply at UGO, I had a thing called a byline, and it was like, oh yeah, oh no, big time into this, big time. And yeah, having a byline at that point was unusual, again, because you didn't have as many tools to just self-publish or anything like that.
Yeah. Who do you like out there today? What do you keep your eye on other than Game Discover Co. when it comes to games coverage?
Oh man, it's like this. I love this question and I hate this question.
Yep, that's fair.
Because whoever, I feel like there are a lot of people I can say, and then there are people I don't say. I will feel bad that I didn't, and then people are like grumpy. I always resisted any sort of like question like this when I worked at Polygon, because it was especially like an issue where it's like, oh, well, I shouted out these two people. Did I not notice the other people's work?
Right.
So I'm like very hesitant to say it.
You can pull a Sarah Palin. You read everybody. You read everything all the time. It's all good.
No, I don't want to do that. I mean, the easiest one that I will say is Nicole Carpenter, who I worked with at Polygon, who I have been really enjoying see spread across, especially a lot of indie outlets.
Yeah.
And Nicole does so much original reporting and so many different types of original reporting. And I think what has been really thrilling about her freelance period is that having a bunch of different outlets has like created homes for the different aspects of her personality. And she has done great work on labor. She's done great work on like Roblox. She's done great work on lawsuits. And, you know, some of those stories are aftermath stories, and some of those stories are Chitillo stories, right? And I think that's really cool. I kind of talked about this on Blue Sky last night, but Toussaint Egan is he specialized in curation when we worked together at Polygon. And this is like, I would pay for his Blue Sky feed. Basically, like he has taken the work that he was doing at Polygon and translated it kind of like Wario 64 style into a Blue Sky approach, where it's just like you are being bombarded by cool stuff all of the time. And it's like great art and great movies and great games. And it's such an antidote to like the rest of Blue Sky of like being on social media.
Yeah.
That I like absolutely love it. And I think that sort of work can be like lost when you're thinking about journalism. Like when you are sharing things in a social space, that can be an act of journalism. Especially when you're doing it with like real intention and like doing it to like, I don't know, for a purpose.
Yeah. Some unpaid journalism. Like,
yeah. I mean, and like I said, I hope he like goes on Patreon and does that. I'll also say some people outside of games that I'm like really enjoying.
Before we move on, sorry, who was the great Blue Sky follow again? What was her name?
Oh, Toussaint Egan.
Okay.
TOUSSAINTEGAN.
Got it. Thank you. Done and done. Okay. Now, outside of games, you're saying.
I have to do it right off my head. But then, yeah, the last one that I will say is Evan Minsker, who runs a publication called Seesaw, and it is at seesaw.fun. And Evan was helping run news over at Pitchfork before that whole thing collapsed, and now runs a punk newsletter, like a newsletter dedicated to the punk scene. And again, things I find like just deeply inspirational.
Yeah.
It is a one-man operation who is making zines, who is putting together like live shows, who is like creating an actual community, and who has really found a niche that I think is kind of perfect for this, right? Like, can an entire publication exist for punk in 2025? No. Can like a newsletter / small event space exist?
Right.
Yeah, like I think it can.
Yeah.
So I take a lot of inspiration from the work that I see him doing.
Awesome. I'll put the links to all this stuff in the description for people if they want to check all this stuff out. Polygon, I understand, delicate operation, still pretty raw and emotional. Is it tough to keep up with? Does it still feel like you want to light your soul on fire even thinking about the end of that site for you?
No, but only because I like am bad at processing.
Mm.
You know, like I'm sure I will be a thing that I really, as you can see me like spiraling. I'm sure it will like come up in therapy in a few years.
Okay, hasn't yet.
But like I probably in an unhealthy way, like sprinted to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Like my way of like dealing with something is finding the next opportunity, and like I can find a lot of like joy and relief, and like I said earlier, like in having a sense of control, and you know, leaving and then being able to go and make something that has, I think, really devoured all of my whatever my mental load and hasn't allowed for a lot of time for like processing. I think there's also the other thing of like I have more concern about everyone else.
Right.
And that like people, I've had some people be like, wow, but it was like your publication. And for me, it's like, no, it really wasn't. It was like a lot of people's publications. And for me, so much of what I did, as we talked about earlier, was run a business. So when I am losing that, like, yes, I'm losing the opportunity to like oversee the vision of publication, but that is just one portion of the job. There are many people who, you know, day in, day out were coming in and doing the creative and having that editorial vision. And I think that I just have like a profound empathy for people who no longer have that. And they're now figuring out like what their next steps are, because I think that is tough. I think that's really tough.
Yeah. Are you able to, at the level of processing you've done, other than, you know, how it ended for so many folks over there with the sale, are you able to have any sense of kind of looking at the full scope of Polygon and being like, mission accomplished? If I squint, like so much great work there that like, I don't know what I was expecting. Sites can't go on forever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that might be part of it, in that, like, I do know nothing goes on forever. I've worked at enough places before this that, like, I know that things just disappear off the internet. Like, I never am under the impression that stuff will be there forever. Just this morning, one of the listeners of Post Games messaged me because I had mentioned Block Party, the band, in an episode. And they're like, this is wild. I can't believe you mentioned Block Party. I'm the manager of Block Party. And I was like, that is incredible, because my wife and I's first date-ish was at a party called the Motherfucker that they would hold at the Roxy in New York in 2005. And it was Block Party's, I believe, first performance in the US. And it's this wild concert. It is like, I am not that cool, but it was one of the few moments where I was like at a moment that was like culturally important if you care about that like music scene in New York in the early 2000s. And I was like, oh, I should send him the pictures from that, because like Last Night's Party was there, and all these Cobra Snake or whatever it's called, all these different like millennial hipster websites were there, and I hadn't even seen them. So I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna look that up. And I was so excited because I found like a brooklynvegan.com story about this show, and it had links to all the places of all the different photographers who had shot it, and none of the photos are online. None of them. Like, not even on archive.org. Like, it is lost, right? And that's the reality. When I was at that show, this was the most important thing happening in New York, like that night. And Gawker wrote it up the next day. Hillary Duff was there back when Hillary Duff was like part of the scene. Black Party was becoming this an emergent big band. Like, it was a thing.
Yeah.
And its record on the internet does not exist, right? And I think I've always known that. Like, that is just how it is. So when I think about the Polygon of it all, I think part of my reaction is a deep sadness, but also like sadly a like, yeah, this is how the internet works. Like, this is part of the thing unless you own it. And even then, if you own it and you're not paying your server fees, it's still the thing.
Yeah.
So there's that. In terms of it, like, did we mission accomplished? Like, we like mission accomplished, not in the George Bush way, like 5 times. You know, I mean, the first time
Take that, Bush.
Yes, there were multiple large video game studios that we met with in the first few months of Polygon, who basically like laughed us out of the room and were like, okay, sure, like, come back to us in 2 years when you're dead.
Yeah. Right.
So that alone, that was probably my original like metric, was, oh, when did we start being taken seriously by these people? And we were at that in a year. Like, that was pretty quick.
Does that feel really good to hit that point when suddenly Nintendo and Sony are like, oh, right this way, sir, I'll be damned, to build yourself up from basically nothing to that? That's got to be incredible.
It it does, until you realize it serves very little value. Like, it, like, it's very nice, I guess, and flattering, but were we getting like massive interviews that just set the world on fire? No. Like, the truth is, doing original reporting is the faster way to like a like really strong and stable audience. Right. And then there are any other number of things. Like, could we still have done guides without that? Yeah, it probably would have worked similar. Did it help to have early code? Yeah, of course. But yeah, I was never a person who really felt that special about it. And I think people always, there were people who did know what we did, and I would meet up and I'd be like, they're like, oh, who are you? I'm like, oh, my name's Chris. I work for this video game website. It's called Polygon. I'm like, Polygon? Like, of course I know what that is. I'm like, why do you introduce it like that? It's like, because the other 3 times I do it, people are like, a website? I've never heard of those. You know, like, there's always people out there to make you humble.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's nice that you have that attitude instead of easily getting, I don't know, it's not exactly a wine and dine situation, but like, there are the people that would be like, this is it. If I feel important in this room, then that's mission accomplished, without looking at the big picture of like, what are you getting from this proximity to quote unquote power? There's no tangible impact. Maybe your odds of getting this interview 2 years down the line has gone up 14%. Like, is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah. I think that is right. Of like, what are you saving up all your chips for if you're never going to cash them? Right.
Do you feel like you cashed some chips?
At Polygon, definitely. I mean, I mentioned Nicole Carpenter earlier, but I think we did a union zine that was like this like big project of like how unionization works in video games, and whether or not you thought it would be a tutorial, that was up to you.
Right.
But there was a lot of information in it. It was big. It was expensive. It took a long time to make. Carpenter did a great job on it. We had killer art on it. There was a lot of people involved. And that's caching chips. Like, when you put that out, you know damn well, like, what the reaction will be in the industry. You know what will be, you have to get it through legal. And that's not to say, like, Fox Media or legal tried to shoot it down. Not at all. It's just, it needs to be airtight, and that takes a lot of time, and it takes more money. And legal is not cheap. So things like that always felt like big wins. I think we did a documentary about Spycraft that Simone de Rochefort and Clayton Ashley did that, or it's just killer. And it was narrated by Jamel Bowie. And like, that's a caching chips. That's more of like an internal caching chips. And then like the external caching chips is just, yeah, like, I mean, every time you write an original thing, you know that somebody's not going to like it. Like, that's just the reality.
Sure.
And we did that on a weekly basis. So I feel pretty good about it. And maybe that's also why I never felt like super wined and dined, because I think our relationship with PR was always one of mutual respect, but not of like friendship. Like, right. It was like, yeah, okay, we get what you do. We get each other.
We understand this bigger ecosystem.
That's good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Can you tell me the story of Quibi?
Quibi! Oh, I wish I could. I honestly can't. I
what
can't
are you talking
tell you
about?
That much. And not even because I'm like under NDA or anything, though maybe I am. I don't know. I actually don't know that much. Talk about a thing that like truly I handed off and other people were involved in. I am like was extremely hands off with that.
Did you have initial meetings with like Katzenberg and whatnot? Like, and then it just gets passed off beyond that?
I wasn't in them.
Okay.
That was Russ Freshtick, Mike Mahardy, Simone de Rochefort, I think Ross Miller maybe. There were people who were having those meetings. I was not in them. I will say, I think Quibi was a great idea because investing a lot of money into media is always a great idea. And I think it was great that they put a lot of money into different media companies in a time where they really needed it. But that's about as much as I know. And I watched it sometimes.
Yeah. But it had a stupid name. So what are you going to do? I mean, we've got to dunk on this thing.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like everything on the internet has really stupid names.
Oh, yeah. I've noticed.
But yeah.
And then if it's a failure, it's the easiest dunk of all time. Then if it succeeds, like, well, of course we knew something called the Wii was going to be the biggest console of all time. What are you talking about? It's right there, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the iPad, when that came out, people were really having feelings.
I remember it was trending at the top of Twitter at the time, #iTampon. Because everyone's like, iPad, iTampon. There's not even no whiff of a tampon when people talk about iPads these days.
If you've ever wondered, has Twitter always been bad? The answer is actually yes. It's always been bad, just in different ways.
Yeah. So post games, can you give me the best case scenario 5 years from now? You seem so focused right now on like, I just want to control it. I want to slowly build it. In 5 years, is the dream to have a team of 2 to 3, or is it I need to be by myself till the grave?
I think it's probably by myself. I honestly have thought zero about like what it would look like with more people. If I did anything and it was really successful, it would be having somebody who could help with like business stuff. So like if in 5 years I'm doing some live shows and we have like a merch ecosystem and we have more ad partners and all of those things, like that stuff that would be great to have taken off my hands. Ironically, the stuff that I used to do a lot more.
Yeah. You think you'd be an expert. You just don't want to deal with it anymore.
Well, it is just time that I can't put into the show. And the thing that I want to have control of, and the thing that I know what it is in a way that like nobody else knows what it is. That is all in my brain.
Right.
But like other people can know how ads work, like those are things that other people could support with. But really what I just want is it to be sustainable. All I care about is it a show that I can produce sustainably in a way that is healthy, in a way that is like does not sacrifice quality, and in a way that I like want to keep doing it every morning. Like when I wake up, I'm just really excited about it. And like I said, I'm pretty optimistic that we will be there.
Yeah. If the numbers were frozen in time right now, would you be all right?
Oh no.
Okay, all right. That feels like that should have been the lead.
Yeah, but like in a way that like it would be ridiculous if they were that already. Like that's crazy. Like that would be, because what I am having to adjust from is having like a good salary at I was not part of the union, but a unionized workspace with all of the benefits and all of those things, right?
Yeah.
And I need to get to a space now where I don't know if I won't like need to match that, but a place that is like comparable. And I also need to like create more savings again, because I had that buffer, and that buffer is now going to deplete over the course of this year. So like there's no world in which the show launches and within like 2 months I'm at that spot.
Yeah. But if people want to help support it, then go to patreon.com/postgames. Nice.
Just
and clean and simple.
So good. Or post.games if you want to make it simple and just subscribe there, and then you can click the link. And yeah, I think there's a $20 a month version of it that people can subscribe to if they really want to throw money at me. That's truly somebody had recommended this, and it was a great recommendation, because there are very generous people who will do that. I was stunned, but I don't encourage that. Like, you don't need to do that. You can just pay the normal amount. That's great. Or you can just subscribe to the show for free, and you get like good chunk of it. You get most of the show. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, hey, congrats, man. You're at the top of the mountain. Maybe you don't feel like it every day, but I mean, it's a pretty sweet spot to be editor-in-chief of a huge site and then go off and do your own thing, and it's successful. Like that's everything. That's true. I would never have thought of myself as at the top of the mountain, but that is a very kind way of putting it. You made it across the Atlantic, and now you're on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm not sure exactly, but I feel like Death Stranding more than I'm like halfway on the side of a mountain. I'm like 30 boxes on top of me. I'm like, I'm going to do it on my own. People are like, are you sure you don't want help? And I'm like, I'm doing it on my own. Storms coming, piss grenades everywhere. You got it all. Anything you're dying to say we didn't talk about? Death Stranding 2 is the best game of all time. Okay. You need to go play it. Okay, awesome. Looking forward to hearing more about it everywhere. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for watching, listening, sharing. You can always subscribe to MinnMax's YouTube channel if you like. There's a ton more interviews like this. There's also some rapid fire interviews in that playlist as well you might enjoy with developers and beyond, but any help spreading it's appreciated. But thanks so much, Chris. Greatly appreciate your time, man. Thank you. All right, bye everybody. If you thought, hey, this video wasn't bad, well, there's a whole lot more like it on MinnMax's YouTube channel. Please help us out by subscribing to our channel and checking out the MinnMax Show podcast, also available on your favorite podcast app, the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet with the deepest dive, our monthly community trivia show with prizes called Trivia Tower, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.